Hello. We have plenty of things to cover today, such as Jonathan Roush, author and activist, is headed back to D.C. today after his talk with President Lori White, Super Bowl Sunday, and Senior Clay Troyer will be talking with myself about his podcast. I'm Drew Cosgray, and you are watching The Source. It is so good to be back and rolling for our second semester. Myself and the rest of D3 TV hope you all had a great winter break and are ready for a great second semester. Kicking off The Source today, journalist, activist, and author Jonathan Roush is headed back to D.C. after speaking with President Lori White yesterday at Carnegie Hall, talking about freedom of expression. Mr. Roush writes for the American magazine, The Atlantic, and won the National Headliner Award in 2010 for his work. I had the chance to attend their meeting and speak with Roush myself, which did not disappoint. Super Bowl Sunday is right upon us as the Cincinnati Bengals will be taking on the Los Angeles Rams for the Super Bowl title. My cousin is actually the head trainer for the Bengals, so I'm really hoping that Cincinnati can bring the title back. I think that'd be really cool, not only for Cincinnati, but for my family. Senior soccer player Clay Troyer has loved soccer since the day he first stepped on the field. Like all of us, Troyer has a favorite team, Tottenham Hotspur in London, England. This week, I was able to sit down with the soccer captain about the podcast, how he manages to do the podcast while being a student, and how his love for soccer and his club have grown as he has grown up. Hello, Tigers. I'm here with senior soccer player Clay Troyer. Clay, how are you, man?
It's good, man. Good to see you.
Good. For those of you who don't know, Clay has his own podcast over the Tottenham Hotspur. He's actually one of my best friends, and I get to listen to his podcast a bunch, and it has a lot of interesting stuff. And I really wanted to share his story with all you guys today. So, Clay, first off, could you just kind of tell me how did your podcast start? When did that idea come about?
Yeah, so I think everyone kind of has a COVID hobby, right?
Yeah.
Where they were sitting at home, not much to do, and a buddy of mine, my best friend from home, known us since kindergarten, grew up playing soccer together, grew up watching soccer together, both big Tottenham fans. We actually tried to start a YouTube channel on all soccer, but with school and everything going on, it was a little too much to cover and too much editing to do. So we're like, you know what? Maybe podcast a little bit simpler. Let's stick to what we know and love. Let's do Tottenham. So it was pretty simple, really. We came up with a name. You can use a free podcast hosting site, and then the rest is kind of history.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, when did your love for Tottenham begin? For me, my favorite teams, the Chicago Cubs and Purdue basketball. For you, as I know, and as you tell everyone, you're a huge Tottenham fan. So can you kind of tell me how that all began too, like when you started watching Tottenham and how often you watch them and who are some of your favorite players on the team?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I like the whole team. It depends on the game, who plays worse or not, depending on my favorite player. My favorite player's got to be Heung-min Son, though, overall. You can't not like him. He's like the happiest player out there.
He is.
You know that. To kind of go back to the origins of me being a fan, I played soccer growing up, and there was like a certain age where watching soccer wasn't quite as fun as playing it, and my dad always tried to get me to watch it. So what really got me into it was something that I could do with my dad and like a fun, family activity that, something that we had that no one else in our family had. So, everyone has those certain things with their family members, and that was kind of my dad and I's thing. So, but we didn't have a team really. So when NBC Sports, got the rights to air Premier League games in the United States, those are the games that we could watch. So we were like, all right, we got to pick a Premier League team. And actually, my parents went for their anniversary over to England. They're like, all right, we got to pick a team. We got to buy tickets and let's go. So at the time, there were two American players on Tottenham, Brad Friedel, who was a goalkeeper, and Clint Dempsey, who I'm sure you're familiar with. So not only was it cheap tickets to go to in England, but it was kind of an up-and-coming team with a lot of exciting players and two Americans, which was like unheard of back then. So my dad picked it, and I was maybe 9 or 10 at the time, and watched every game with him on Sundays, and became our kind of ritual and routine. And I grew to love watching it and being all into the sports and the stats of it much more than I think he thought I would have. So.
Yeah, so a few years back, right before the pandemic hit, Amazon Prime, they had the All or Nothing Tottenham Hotspur special. I mean, I'm just curious, as we all know, you keep up to date with all the team news and such, What did you think of that show? Were you pleased with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot that goes into a team that you don't see, like, from the field, right? You watch a game and you can maybe watch a press conference, but that's about it. You don't get to see what you experience, as a soccer player. What we experience in the locker room from a coach might be a lot different than what you see on the outside. So being able to be in the locker room with, at the time, Jose Mourinho, who was probably one of the most volatile managers out there, was really cool. And I got to see which players have certain mentalities and which players are leaders, and really what goes on behind the scenes. Because they spend their entire day there. They eat breakfast, they train, they eat lunch, they train, and then they go home, sort of thing. So, we think of it as a job, but you think, oh, playing soccer can't be that hard. But there's so much that goes into it. To see that behind the scenes, especially with Tottenham, was pretty cool.
Yeah. So, what has it been like doing your podcast while at school? I mean, that can't be easy.
Yeah.
You live in a fraternity. I've seen that you leave a little note outside your door, and as like I said the other day, I didn't even see it, and I just walked right in and such. I mean, how hard is it to, be consistent with it, stay focused while living in a house full of guys?
Well, the best part is that it's fun, so I
Yeah.
enjoy doing it. So it's always easier to do things that you enjoy, which is kind of a big thing about my co-host and I, Matt Kuster's thing was, we enjoy this, so let's keep doing it, right? The hardest part has been scheduling times with him because he goes to school at Butler, which is, we can't do it at the same place. We got to set up Zoom calls and all that. And then editing and doing all the behind-the-scenes work for the podcast. That's probably the hardest part, but I think in terms of staying consistent, we just had to figure out, hey, you're going to do this, I'm going to do that, and, it's not going to come out at the same day every week, especially while we're in school, but try to stick to the schedule as best we can, and, we'll figure it out. As you know, I've had to find maybe 3 or 4 different spots on campus
Yes. I do know that.
To record.
I
so
do know
living
that.
in a fraternity house can be hard, but, you just got to pick the times to record is the big part.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Clay, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about your experience. I'm sure a lot of people, I hope a lot of people hear this and do something with one of their hobbies like you have done and become so successful with it. But I'm going to shoot it back to the show. Once again, Clay Troyer, DePauw soccer player, senior. Thank you so much, man.
Thanks for having me.
It was a blast getting to interview Clay about his podcast, and I cannot wait to see the content he continues to produce. It is always a pleasure getting to be the start of your Friday. Have a great weekend. My name is Drew Cosgray, and you're watching The Source.